All right, guys, so this is getting interesting. This is getting interesting, if you ask me. Rick Scott to challenge Mitch McConnell for Senate GOP leader. Now, before we talk about this, let me mention there was an attempted coup in the House as well. Some people were trying to replace Kevin McCarthy, but they had the vote, and it was only 33 votes against Kevin McCarthy, which means it was 190-something in favor of Kevin McCarthy. So McCarthy is going to be the leader of the Republicans in the House, the Speaker of the House at this point, because they just won the House. And there were people like Matt Gaetz. I think he was trying to replace McCarthy. I don't think he was running against McCarthy. Some guy named Biggs was, but Gaetz was speaking out against him. Yeah, I don't know the politics of what's going on in the House. I'm not 100% sure on, because I thought McCarthy was the Trump pick, because he snuggled up to Trump. Now, in the Senate, of course, Mitch McConnell is not liked by Trump. And so Rick Scott trying to challenge Mitch McConnell to be leader in the Senate, this is a coup attempt. This is Trump trying to flex. He's at his low point now politically. They're trying to make a move, and they're coming for the king of the Republicans in the Senate. And you know the old saying, if you come for the king, you best not miss. I don't know, man. I don't know how Rick Scott could get the votes. I don't know. He's the head of the NRSC, National Republican Senatorial Committee, I guess. And so he was responsible for running the races, raising the money, running the races, allocating the funds to the different Republican Senate candidates. Look, they lost the Senate. They did a terrible job. And Rick Scott was getting criticized for using very scammy approaches to raising money, pissing off the base in many respects. So for this guy to be a massive failure, and then to try to take McConnell's spot, apparently there was a big argument. We'll talk about that in a second. But in Axios, they say Rick Scott to challenge Mitch McConnell for Senate GOP leader. Senator Rick Scott announced at a closed-door conference lunch on Tuesday that he plans to challenge Mitch McConnell for Senate GOP leader. Multiple people have told Axios. The announcement came as Senate Republicans were meeting to examine their underwhelming performance in the midterm elections, during which they failed to gain enough seats to take back a majority in the chamber. Scott spokesperson McKinley Lewis and two other sources familiar with the announcement confirmed the plan to Axios. Scott, chairman of the Senate Republicans campaign arm and a member of the Senate Republican leadership, has openly feuded with McConnell for months over differing strategies for the midterm elections. Scott is also one of several conservative senators who have called on McConnell to delay the Senate GOP's leadership elections until after the Georgia runoff on December 6th. And let me pause now to say, in that debate over what the strategy should be for the midterms, McConnell was correct and Rick Scott was wrong. Rick Scott said, I'm going to release this agenda, which shows what we're going to fight for. And in the list of shit, one of the things he put was, everybody's got to have skin in the game, so we're going to make everybody pay some semblance of taxes. That's a coded way of saying we're going to raise taxes on the poorest 50% of Americans. And what happened is the media picked up on that. Even conservative media was slamming him over that. Like, why would you run on raising taxes on the bottom 50%? What are you, crazy? Then there were other portions about effectively destroying Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, cutting them, privatizing them, whatever it may be. That was in there. And Mitch McConnell's like, look, you idiot, I agree with you on all these things, but you don't run on it. This is the stuff we say behind closed doors. You don't say this in front to people because people don't like this. We're not going to win talking about this. So McConnell's suggestion was just say nothing. Don't say anything and we'll win. It's going to be a pendulum election. Everybody will blame the Democrats. Just let us win. Just shut the fuck up and get out of your own way. And Rick Scott didn't listen, and you know what happened. Okay. Senate Republicans are looking for whom to blame after losing their opportunity to reclaim power. Yeah, gee, I wonder. Who's to blame on the right for this loss? Who is the party tied to, and who's their de facto leader, and who's been the shadow cast over them all this time? Tough one. Despite the challenge, McConnell has repeatedly maintained he's confident he has the votes to be reelected as leader. Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, has been pushing for Scott to run against McConnell and has tried to make McConnell the fall guy for the Republicans' inability to regain the majority. Hilarious. Trump, who plans to announce Tuesday night his plans to run for president in 2024, is expected to lean hard on his Senate allies to back Scott over McConnell. So right now, I think he's got, Cruz, Hawley, maybe a handful of others, but it's 5-6 people is what I read. That ain't enough, dog. That is not enough. And by the way, Trump has pissed off a lot of these candidates too, these Republican candidates, because he was basically scamming them. He was, raising money for their campaigns. He just did this with Herschel Walker the other day, where he'd take 90% of the money and he'd give 10% to them. So Rick Scott and Trump are not popular within the Republican Party. They're just not. Trump's way has noticeably faltered since last Tuesday's elections, with many top Republicans distancing themselves from the former president after several key GOP candidates, hand-selected by Trump, lost. In a letter to his Senate Republican colleague, Scott wrote, "I'm writing to you today because I believe it's time for the Senate Republican Conference to be far more bold and resolute than we have been in the past. We must start saying what we are for, not just what we are against." Turns out that was a bad idea because what you're for is unpopular. There is a Republican Party that is alive and well in communities across America. It is time there is one in Washington, D.C., too. That is why I am running to be Republican leader. Apparently people don't like this guy either. They don't like Rick Scott. Scott's decision earlier this year to release a multi-point Republican agenda that featured new taxes infuriated McConnell, who swiftly publicly rejected it. The plan ultimately provided extensive attack fodder that President Biden leveraged in support of his party. How is Rick Scott so stupid? McConnell, meanwhile, has long believed in focusing on Democrats' shortcomings during elections and opposed putting out a legislative plan ahead of last week's midterms. Scott is now using the decision as a key tenet of why he should be made leader over McConnell. All right, so time for my favorite part of the story. This is great. I love this. Senator Rick Scott and GOP leader Mitch McConnell engaged in a tense back and forth where they criticized each other as the two men addressed Senate Republicans in a tense 3-hour meeting, according to multiple senators. Quote, Senator Scott disagrees with the approach that Mitch has taken in this election and for the last couple of years, and he made that clear, and Senator McConnell criticized Senator Scott's management of the NRSC, Senator Josh Hawley told us. Let him fight, baby. Let him fight. Same with Trump and DeSantis. Let him fight. Go at it. Go to town. Slit each other's throats. Tear each other apart. Do whatever you gotta do. Because the fact of the matter is, right now, these motherfuckers stand for nothing. They stand for nothing. They stand for, we like that Roe versus Wade was overturned. We like that we denied the election in the last election. And other than that, CRT, ooga booga. Trans kids in school, ooga booga. And that's it. That's all we got. And other than that, we're just going to rip each other apart. By all means, go right ahead. I'm certainly enjoying it very much. All right, guys, that's the show for today. I know it's kind of a short show for today. Trump's announcement kind of threw a wrench in the middle of the week. But anyway, we have a really, really great Crystal Kyle and Friends that's coming at you on Friday. We're going to talk to Matt Stoller about FTX and crypto and everything that went on with Sam Bankman-Fried and that whole, just a total con artist, total fraud, everything that went down with that. We're going to dive into the specifics of it. I'm really interested to have that conversation because that's it's quite the topic, right? Like, crypto was originally came around as like a promise to be better than the current system that we had, and then they just became the system. They embodied all the bad aspects of Wall Street, so it became an unregulated mess, and the whole thing was a con when it comes to FTX. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about crypto. I really can't wait to have that conversation. It should be really, really interesting. So many people got hurt in the FTX thing. I feel bad for them. Anyway, all right. So that's it, guys. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Tell me I got the world's biggest ding dong. Tell me I'm the sexiest man on planet Earth. All that great stuff. And yeah, that's it. Listen on the podcasting apps. If you want, we get the full show that we put over on the podcasting apps now. So if you don't want to go video for video on YouTube, you could do that. Shout out to the Patreon supporters. Shout out to the Substack supporters. And try to get us to 1 million subs, man. I really appreciate that. Just, if everybody who watched the show, subscribed to the show, we'd already be there. So, all right, guys. Love you. I'm out. Peace. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.